Well, hello everyone. I can see that we have a few people here already coming on board. That's great. Just looking at the chat here. Hi, Evan. How you doing? Hey, all. Thanks so much for joining us. If you can, think about a few things before we get started. We can interact right now and chat a little bit. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and maybe your favorite book. We could get this party rolling even before the downbeat. Sandra from Alberta, Canada. And Lee from Georgia. Hi, Karen. New York. Dale from Arkansas. Lucas. Hi. Hello, everyone. Yeah, we're starting to populate. It's going a little bit faster than I can read. That's kind of ironic. Yeah. Yeah, so for those of us just joining, be thinking about if there's a book that you'd like to recommend, feel free to share that with. I'm going to share some of mine today, so let's make this collaborative. Yes, 7 Habits, Elliot, for sure. For the adults and for the teens, both are good, right? I can't name my favorite book because I love so many of them. Look at you, Kaylin. Good for you. I'm wondering, are you a teacher right now, Kaylin? I always found it difficult to read too many books when I was in the classroom, but it's great. Daniel, Practice with Purpose, David Kish. Okay, that's new to me. Great. And by the way, my email is up there, so you'll want to, if you can elaborate, I would love to get some email, and you could, when we're all done, just take a little bit of time to reflect and give me a short 2-3 sentences about what the book's about. And I'd love to get in. Yes, John Maxwell, Doug, 5 levels of leadership for sure. The Power of Moments, Chip and Dan Heath. Lee, that's interesting. The Art of Success. Yeah, some of us, good. I can see, there's some Brene Brown. Simon Sinek, yeah. Oh, this is great. Oh, hey, Timmer. How's it going, buddy? And by the way, another shout out to the founder of this thought. We are all disciples in his journey. So good to be able to be of support in one very small little way. But thanks, Tim, for allowing this venue along with everyone else. Let's see, we're about 4 minutes out, I think, but we're getting some more books here. I want to, Adam, what is that? I want to play everything. I want to plug everything as a book about hope and Mark Manson. Ooh, there you go. Intriguing. Why, Sean says, why are all the black kids eating together in the cafeteria? Guys, Chris, Teaching Music with Passion by Peter Boonshaft, a good friend of mine, great guy. Maybe I should, The Inner Game of Tennis. Yeah, man, if you want to, that's like my second most stolen book. The Inner Game of Tennis, every time I would give it to a student, I would never get it back. So I started saying, hey, Amazon, check it out. Leadership Jazz. Mark, who's that by? Let's see here. The Culture Code. We will chat. Yeah, some of these books we'll talk about for sure. So we're on the same page. Thank you, Megan. Megan Wagner. And remember, if you can, tell us where you're from so that we know. Yeah, The Conductor as Leader, Principles of Leadership Applied to Life on the Podium. Yeah, thanks, Janine. The Talent Code. Yes. The Pathways, Claire. Yeah. And another talent code. Oh, this is great. This is great. I wonder, Elisa, is there a way to capture this so that everyone has a chance to get all of this stuff, all of the library of resources?
Yes. So I just posted a link at the top of the chat where people can fill out the little form, and that will help us collect it. And then I also, we can also download the chat log. So we'll
Okay,
definitely
that's
be
going to be
able to do
great.
that. Yeah.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
we definitely want to collect this data. So either they can fill out the form at the top and we'll also get the chat log. All right.
Well, I think that'd be great. In fact, I think I'm just going to shut up and just let you guys keep on doing it. I've done my work. That was easy. We're going to start in just about a minute and let everyone to kind of get settled here. Just attending right now. Friends, I'd like you to, what we're doing right now is kind of just introducing ourselves. Who are you? Where are you from? And also what your favorite book is. And the polls are already getting started, and I can tell that some of us have already populated the poll. Thanks for doing that. The question is, how many books for professional and or personal do you read during the course of the year? And that will tell us a little bit about who we are and what we're doing. I'm not sure that all of us are like Larry Livingston, where we read 50 books a year. Wouldn't that be amazing? But I think we'll find that it looks like right now we're kind of about half of us are in that 1 or 2 book area, which is where I used to be when I was in the classroom on a regular basis. So we'll keep that poll running throughout the duration. But I think we're about ready to get started. Elisa, is there anything that I need to do or on your end before we get started? I don't think so. So why don't we just get going, friends? Hi, my name is John Gomez, and this session is entitled, If I Could Only Read One Book. The intention of this session is to be able to provide 10 of my favorite books. And I have a lot of favorites, but I had to whittle it down. And for the purpose of this moment in time, I wanted to be able to share with everyone books that relate to us both professionally as well as personally. And knowing that this year people can toggle between clinics and watch them via a recorded session, I also wanted to make sure that our friends in the string track and new teachers that this information was accessible to everyone. Some of us, there's a full gamut. Some of us only read 1 or 2 books a year because, well, we're trying to find time. Others of us are voracious readers, and it really doesn't matter. This is the intention of this session is not to dig deep into one book per se. I think that's the follow-up. My intention is to spark an interest and maybe introduce a book that is one of those aha moments, and I'll try to provide little highlights within each book. And if there is a book or two that resonates with you, then my job is complete here. So without any further ado, let's keep going to the very first book, shall we? And let's get started with Habits of a Significant Band Director by Scott Rush. Scott wrote this book in 2018, published by GIA Publications, and it's about planning, process, and pedagogy. When I first met Scott, or was introduced to his works, it was actually through his method book, his high school band method book entitled Habits of a Successful Musician. I found that book to be very comprehensive, and it really worked for me during my last year's teaching high school and at Dobson and into college at the college level. He also, by the way, has other method books, similar format, one for middle school and another for the string program, and they are equally comprehensive. So this enticed me to check out one of the books that he's written, which is this one, and it's divided into 4 sections. Basically, Scott talks about pedagogy, the what of what we should teach, the philosophy, what our purpose for teaching is, the how of teaching, and then what he refers to as the transcendence. What happens when students know that they are loved and cared for and valued? I just talked to Scott last week, and one of his quotes in his books is very similar, I think, to many of us, and it goes all the way back to Theodore Roosevelt, which is people don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. And that's true of students as well. And that message resonates throughout throughout Scott's book. That if in fact it's not good enough to just teach content, but to understand the contents, the context of what we're doing, and how we can teach in such a way that students eventually end up learning by themselves out of the classrooms. That's when we know we've reached that point of significance. In his book, he has a terrific, lots of terrific things to really think about and incorporate in our teaching. One of my favorites is his acronym TID, or the Teaching Inventory Database. Basically, what he does is he takes, I believe it was like 36 different concepts. Now, if you can think about things that we would see maybe on an assessment page at a festival, tone, intonation, balance, blend, those things. But he has 36 different concepts in one column. And then next to that, he'll have a second column with a whole list of bullet items of things that, pedagogical ideas that can, whatever the concept is. But imagine if we were able to organize ourselves that way so that we could have a lot of different tricks in our bag of musical tricks to be able to use to help all of our students. The second book that I'd like to get to is actually Rehearsing the High School Band by Stephen Meyer, a good friend of mine now teaching at Northern Arizona University. And this was published by Meredith Music Publications in 2016. And as you can see this slide, take a look at the right hand, and I hope you can see the list of Hall of Famers that have been teaching at the high school level, including 3, by the way, that are teaching today and yesterday: Gary Markham, Richard Salcedo, and Frank Troika. So it tells you a little bit about the rest of our colleagues that are on this list. And if you take a look at the left side, see all of the different types of things Stephen asks. This book actually was inspired by a book written by John Williamson back in the 90s entitled Rehearsing the Band, where he interviewed 11 collegiate level band directors and asked them questions about rehearsal etiquette and whatnot. And so he's followed that format somewhat. And what Stephen has found out is that while all of these colleagues had programs that were very successful and they all sounded wonderful, they all had different journeys getting there. And so that's what's really intriguing about being able to read the same question but different responses to varying degrees from each of the different contributors. For those in middle school, also know that Stephen wrote, I think 2 years later, a similar book intended for middle schoolers. And I think he's writing another book, in fact, more along the marching band vein. Book 3 is The Artistry of Teaching and Making Music by the giant Richard Floyd. This was published in 2015 by GIA Publication. This is a book that if you could sit with someone who has been in our profession for over 50 years and just be able to glean off of his experience, there's no one better than Richard Floyd. My only regret about this book was that it was written about the same time that I had officially retired from Dobson High School. What I would do to have had this book on the front end of my career, oh my gosh, it would have been amazing. I'll share some of those, just a couple examples of that. But this book, kind of the genesis of this book is kind of twofold. Number one, Richard always kept like a journal of all of the things that worked for him, which I think is a terrific idea. But years later, he would then present at the Midwest Clinic a session entitled this. Pardon me if I get this wrong. You'll understand why. The title was 50 Fail-Safe Fixes for Frequently Frustrating Flaws. Say that 3 times as fast as you can. And I don't know, let me know if some of you were at that clinic just a few years ago at Midwest. That'd be interesting. Now, he has his book set up in about 10 different chapters that contain what he refers to as fail-safe fixes that are frequently very simple concepts to understand. But I think what's important for us to understand is that Richard is also passionate about making sure that it's not just about that, but it's part of the process in terms of creating an artistic experience for our students, which I find that to be, again, we go back to that phrase, content and contexts. But here are a couple of those fail-safe little ideas. For example, on tone, he might tell his clarinets, hey, play with buzzy fingers to improve characteristic tone. On time, he would encourage us to rehearse unconducted so that the time is owned by the ensemble. On balance and blend, he might encourage us to listen in trios so that we can blend and match in as many musical ways as possible. On dynamics, hey, make sure that the illusion of dynamics is for the audience and not for the performer. Here's one of my favorites on creating a musical line. Envision the music without bar lines. He actually has an illustration where he takes the bar lines off of a score, and it's quite astonishing at how we perceive it differently. Perhaps the thing that I like about another thing that I really like about Richard's book is that it's built on a foundation of positivity. Instead of telling, let's say, the trumpet section that they're out of tune, trumpets, you're out of tune, he might say, trumpets, I really appreciate the tone. Now, next time, let's focus on our intonation. What a difference the context makes. So, Richard Floyd. Let's move on, please, to. By the way, before I go on, I think it's important to say that Richard has another book that is on the back burner through GIA, and it's soon to come out, entitled "The 7 Deadly Sins of Music Making." So that's on my list. Now, this is a good time to maybe talk a little bit about how we are able to hold on to the knowledge that we gain from reading these books. A friend of mine, Austin, had called me a few months ago, and he was asking for a list of books that he could read. He just got promoted to a new job, and I shared with him some books, and he followed up saying, how do I keep it all in? And so that made me think, there are different ways that have worked for me, some more effective than others. I've evolved to something what I call bookmarker notes, where I put the page number on. I take a regular an 8.5 by 11 and just fold it up into so that it looks like a bookmarker. And then as I'm reading something that strikes me, that resonates with me, I'll put the page number and just 1 or 2 words to remind what the concept was. And then if there's something that's really exciting, if you take a look right in the middle where it says youth and curiosity, I can't point at it there. You can't see it, but yeah, it's underlined and it has exclamation marks. That means that was probably something huge, something that I might want to use for, let's say, a session like this one. And then you can see the book behind there, how I might just mark that. But the important thing here is to just be able to find ways where we're able to resurrect information and apply it. Sometimes when I find that when I highlight it, I highlight too much, and then when I'm trying to figure out what's most important to me, it just doesn't work as effectively. But the bottom line is you have to find a combination of things that works for you in order to be able to sort of recall this information. Okay, we move on now to the art of a successful teaching, a blend of content and context by one of my mentors, Tim Lotzenheiser. This was published in 1992. By GIA Publications. Now, let's be clear. In my opinion, I think this book, I know this book. This is one of the books that I can't keep on the shelf. Anytime I lend this book out, I don't get it back. And so I stopped doing that after a while and just said, hey, Amazon, go buy your own book. Trust me. But I think the significance in our profession, for those of us that have been around a while, I think we would understand and realize that Tim was instrumental in getting us to understand the importance of not just thinking about content, how well can our ensembles play, but in what context? How do we teach them? with what kind of humanity? And when this was published in 1990, our profession was shifting gears and trying to understand the context part. And Tim, I believe, is one of the pioneers that helped us just create that bridge. And we've been on that mission, and obviously many of us are now disciples of that same kind of message. So this book means a lot to me, and if it's not on your list, please make sure that it's a must-have. I asked Tim just last week, "Hey, Tim, how after having written this book for so many years, has anything changed?" And not to my surprise, he says, "You know what? The content is the same. It's just the context of our reality in this moment that has." So thanks, Tim, for this particular book. Now, I want to shift gears and move from books that are primarily music books into now the personal side of our life, but still it impacts the professional sides. And the first book that I'd like to share with you is entitled Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Carol Dweck is a professor at the University of Stanford, and she has been charging this whole idea of growth mindset. And I think the best way to be able to share this book, and by the way, notice that there's two editions, the 2016 edition and the 2006. Let's take a look at a video that John Spencer, another educator, wrote, and we have his permission to share with. So I hope you enjoy this. I think it's about a minute and a half or so. Enjoy.
Researcher and professor Carol Dweck uses the term mindset to describe the way people think about ability and talent. Dweck delineates between two different mindsets that exist on a continuum. The first is the fixed mindset, which suggests that your abilities are innate and unchangeable. The second is a growth mindset, which views it as something you can improve through practice. In a fixed mindset, you view failure as permanent, but with a growth mindset, you see failure as a chance to learn and even pivot. Those with a fixed mindset are more likely to view critical feedback as a personal attack, while those with a growth mindset will see it as a chance to improve, where they can develop new systems. With a fixed mindset, you're more likely to choose easier tasks and put in minimal effort. After all, if talent is fixed, why bother improving? Why even try? But with a growth mindset, you're more likely to embrace challenging tasks and work hard to improve. Those with a fixed mindset are likely to give up when they face an obstacle. Meanwhile, those with a growth mindset will view obstacles as a chance to experiment and solve problems. In a fixed mindset, the focus is on measurable accomplishments. But with a growth mindset, the focus is more on a journey of continual improvement. With a fixed mindset, you're less likely to take creative risks. But with a growth mindset, creative risks are simply a way to innovate and improve. Ultimately, your mindset influences everything from creative risk-taking to how you view feedback to whether or not you finish difficult tasks. And in the end, it's one of the greatest factors in determining whether or not you grow and improve in your abilities.
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to share with you with Carol and her work is that it's probably the most used reference in terms of when I'm in session in conferences like this or other authors, they make reference to Carol's work quite frequently. So this is a book that I think we're going to want to make sure that we consider adding to our list. And the idea of it not just working for us personally in terms of being personally focused in on growth mindset, but can you imagine if we were able to impact in a positive way our organizations, what kind of a difference that would make with regard to our organization's culture. Speaking of culture, let's move to the next book, The Culture Code, The Secrets of Highly Successful Groups. Daniel Coyle uh, well, I have a thought for you, and think about this question. How do we build and sustain a successful culture within our organization? Or for those of us that maybe inherited a culture that's questionable, how can we change that? And for those of you that like stories, I should tell you that most of the books that I've shared with you have terrific storytelling included in them, and that's kind of a very effective mode of being able to share an important message. Well, the culture code is no different. Doyle shares lots of wonderful stories of the world's most successful organizations, including a story about the U.S. Navy SEALs, the San Antonio Spurs, a comedy troupe, and even a group of jewel thieves. And what he does is he offers specific strategies that promote learning and collaboration. And there's one example in his book, page 185. I want to refer to this. It's the Robert Rosenthal study from 1965. And these are very simple ideas, when done repeatedly, can change a student's success. Let me share them with you. The first thing that we find in successful classrooms is warmth. The teachers were kinder, more attentive, and more connective. Second, input. The teachers provided more material for learning. They always had an extra stack of stuff, music, whatever, projects, to keep students engaged. So warmth, input. Third was response opportunity. The teachers called on the students more often and listened more carefully. Now, friends, this is an area where this was a weakness of mine for a good part of my career. It wasn't until later on that I realized the importance of engagement beyond just the music itself, beyond just preparing for the next performance, whatever it is. It was important to stop and include students in the decision-making process. And after response opportunity, the fourth and final idea of this study was feedback, that students provided more, especially when the students made a mistake. And then I go back to some of the books Richard's book at the beginning of how we're able to reflect on feedback and how to just say, it's rather than saying it's out of tune, we can ask, listen and focus specifically on the A's trumpets and check out the D's. What are they typically? And keep our students engaged. So this is a book that really does a wonderful job. I know some directors who've already used that with their student leadership groups to change and improve the culture of their programs. So book 7, I think for those of us in this session that really love sports, or at least like to lean in on them, and are inspired by outstanding athletes, Olympic athletes, or perhaps coaches of very successful teams, this is a book that I think that you'll like. This is one of my favorites of all of those books, and it's The Essential Wooden, A Lifetime of Lessons on Leadership, on Leaders in Leadership, Coach John Wooden and Steve Jameson. This was published in 2007 by McGraw-Hills. And for those of you that don't know Coach Wooden, he was the UCLA coach in the 60s and 70s. He won 10 championships with his teams in 12 years, his student athletes. He had an 88 game win streak. And what he does in this book is he offers somewhere in the ballpark 200 lessons for inspiring successful performance. Many of us are familiar with his pyramid of success. In fact, when I go and do workshops and am in different business buildings for whatever reason, I can tell you from personal experience that his pyramid of success poster is the most frequently seen poster that I see in schools all over the place. And you could probably Google it, and you're going to find 1,000 different images where he shares with you the qualities of what it takes to establish that culture of success. not necessarily winning, but success, which he does differentiate. Perhaps the thing that I like about his book the most, though, is that he takes time on occasion to, the book shares with us personal letters that he would write his student athletes even before they were on the court in his team. This gives us insight as to how we might be able to reach out to our incoming students, and by writing them notes. He had them in their hip pocket even before they started bouncing a basketball. And I think for that reason, this is one of my favorite books related to athletics. Getting Things Done is our next book, The Art of Free Productivity. How many of us just occasion find ourselves a little stressed out? It's like, when are we not? Or I don't know. When I was teaching a lot on a regular basis, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I had 1,000 things on my mind, and I couldn't get back to bed. Does that resonate with anybody? Or just our current remarkable times that we live in? That probably has provided a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety. Well, friends, I think this is a book that might be somewhat timely at this particular time. This book is about how to organize our lives using what David Allen calls to the acronym GTD, or Getting Things Done. And what he does is, in a nutshell, he wants us to think about three things in terms of our thoughts. He wants us to A, capture all the things that might get done. All of the things. B, prioritize all of those things. Prioritize what actions or inactions need to be taken. Now, the word inaction is important. And then 3, how do we coordinate all those things? And how do we spin all these plates to make sure that they're spinning at the same time? The thing that his strategy, make the best choices and to be able to organize and to clear our mind. In fact, he has a quote in his book that I'd like to share with you because I think it really captures the essence of this book. On page 249, quote, "In my experience, anything that is held only in your head will take up either more or less attention than it deserves. The reason to collect everything is not that everything is equally important. It's that it's not. Incompletions, uncaptured, take on a dull sameness in the sense of the pressure they create and the attention they tie up in our minds. This doesn't mean that your mind will be empty. If you're conscious, your mind will always be focusing on something. But if it's focusing on only one thing at a time, without distraction, you'll be in your zone." So this is a great way to be able to just organize our thoughts and don't allow the clutter to distract from us. How I've used this book, I have on my phone my OneNote, and I have several different files. And in those files, I have the what to do today file, what to do this week file, what to do, something I'd like to do, but down the road, like go rafting or something like that. And this is all sorts of things, just professional. I have my workout file. I have my movies to see file. I have my new friends that I've met file. These are all different things that I have that help to sort of coordinate my thoughts, and I bring the most important things to the forefront. But this allows me to just be more present in the moment. So, Getting Things Done by David Allen. This book was mentioned yesterday by the one and only Paula Kreider. Paula, someone had asked her it was in her first session, and they asked her what was her favorite book. And she said, Dancing with Something, and I'm kind of thinking this was the book because I know that a year ago she shared this book with me, and anytime that Paula Kreider offers a suggestion, if you haven't figured it out by now, jump on it because it's worth gold. And it did not disappoint. Dancing with the Gods, Reflections on Life and Art by Kent Nerburn, published in 2018 by Canongate Books. Thank you, Paula, by the way, for that. Kent is a writer and artist who speaks on the doubts of growing up in the arts. He shares his struggles along the way. Everything from, see if this resonates with you, money struggles. I know that when I was young, well, first of all, let's be honest. In the education profession, few of us are extremely well off. So I was one of those struggling early in my career financially. But some of us might also experience at some point bitterness or rejection, or questions about inspiration and authenticity. And Kent speaks to these things in a very nurturing way. My takeaway from this book is that he wants us to celebrate the art's power to transform the darkest of human experiences and give voice to the grandest of human hopes. Again, I think this book is very timely. And I'd like to share with you a quote of Kent's that he's speaking to the younger people in our profession, those people that are about to start teaching, or those who maybe are in it for less than 5 years. However, for those of us who are vets in the room, I think it also resonates for us. Let me share this quote. This is page 29, by the way, in his book. When we are young in our heart, this lack of complete ownership of our work is what keeps it from having fullness and resolution. It has the power and the excitement of fresh discovery, but it does not have the settled sense that it was the outgrowth of a fuller knowledge. It does not express the past because it does not have a past. And without a past, it does not imply a future. You need make no apology for being young or new in your work. There is magic in the youthful freshness that exists on the edge of risk and discovery. There will come a time when you will look back upon that freshness and long to reclaim it in your work. Right, vets? But while you are in this stage, the patience or the impatience can be overwhelming. Such beautifully written words by Kent, and his entire book reflects like that. It's just so refreshing and enlightening, and it really makes us think about our journey in this absolutely wonderful profession. So we get to the 10th and final book, and I'm going to tell you up front, those of us who were listening to Larry Livingston give his keynote yesterday afternoon, which was fantastic, by the way, vintage Livingston. Wasn't it amazing? The question was asked, what are your favorite books? And the very first book that came out of his mouth was The Book of Joy. He spoke to this book a couple years ago at CSI when he gave the keynote then, and immediately I wrote it down, and I certainly wasn't disappointed. It is a tremendous book. Now, keep in mind that in the context of his conversation yesterday, this guy reads about 50 books a year, and this was the one that popped out of his mind immediately. That should be enough. But let me set this book up for you. This book is about two spiritual giants, 5 days spent together, and one timeless question. They spent time at the Dalai Lama's residence for about 5 days to talk about their anguish and their hardships they had experienced for decades. They are two of the most joyful people in this planet. But here's the question that they asked. How do we find joy in the face of life's inevitable suffering, including fear, stress, anger, grief, illness, and even death? Again, I can't think of a book that resonates more in this time than this one. I'd like to share a little bit of a slide video presentation that is brought to us with permission by the Desmond Tutu Foundation. So sit back and enjoy this video, about a minute and a half.
You don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to become a friend to the Dalai Lama. It just happens. You see, he's not listening.
I will not listen.
Behave like a holy man.
Are we? How are you doing, everyone? Are we ready?
People innately are good, you know.
All have same sort of desire to have happy life, happy day, happy month.
When we kept quiet, our hearts discovered that they were kindred.
Our religion is something unique and something very special.
Share the joy. Are you in?
Yeah, just a terrific book, and it shares their journeys through stories, through research. There's a lot of science that the Dalai Lama actually shares with us. So I hope you're able to add that to your list. Let's get back to, there we go. So those were my top 10, but friends, there are other excellent sources, all of which I've had a chance to read personally. And I hope to read some of the books that are suggested today. Keep in mind that we're about ready to close a poll here in the next few minutes. If you came in a little bit later and contribute to that poll, and or contribute a favorite book of yours that resonates with you that we might want to share with others. Many of us are familiar with teaching music through performance in band, but it could be performance in jazz studies or in orchestra as well. If you're not familiar with those, boy, this has been a huge boost to our profession, and it's a great source that GI has provided for us. On teaching band, notes from Eddie Green. Eddie Green is a giant in the music education professor, taught in Texas for many years, and his book has just tons of pedagogical information that worked for him, and I know that he has many followers that are all in, and his book is a terrific resource. Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. For those of you that find Mindset, the Carol Dweck book, to be very effective, Angela continues her works and makes reference to a lot of Carol's work. Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. This is a book for those of us that like to get into some of the research that backs all this stuff up, the psychology and how we learn. And yet what makes this book so accessible is the fact that it's accessible, that the read is easy and quick, and yet it really helps us to, it just smartens us up. No pun intended. And Sound Leadership is a book for those of us that are not familiar with the works of Scott Lang and his contributions in many ways. Or if you're looking for something for your student leaders, he has developed this method published by Alfred Music, and it's a brand new thing that just came out here in 2019. I am going to, I have a handout, by the way. If you just take a look, I think that there is an offer that it's a list of about 20 books, some of the books we included here today, but there are yet other books that you might want to take a look at. So feel free to take that. And again, I want you to know before we answer any questions in the chat room, and be thinking of any questions, we have a little bit of time, which is good. But I want you to know this. If there's any way that I can be of support to you, please feel free to contact me and we'll take it from there. I'd be happy to be of whatever support I could be. I also want to take just a moment to thank Conn-Selmer. They have been fantastic in terms of be out there and support programs for a good number of years now. and it's been my privilege to be associated with him. My thanks to Steve Zaff, Tim Lotzenheiser, Mike Camfice, Nola Jones, Elisa Jansen Jones, my buddy who's helping on the back here, El Carre, who helped me get prepared for this as well, and the entire support crew. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of this session. But let's get to maybe some of the chats. Any questions that might be. If you have a question, you might be able to mark it the circle so that we could take a look. I know some of you have been having a conversation with great conversations. Adam, does anyone know how this one compares to Wood and on leadership? I'm not sure which book we were talking about, Adam, but I think maybe David Duplessis. Hi, David. Probably might have responded to that. Looking at, can I share the link of that video? Which video are we talking about, Claire Powell? Both videos that I shared, by the way, actually had direct permission to share. So yes, we can. Those videos can be shared, and I just looked them up on YouTube. So if you can't get them from us, they're easily accessible. Caleb, I might have time to do the reading, especially right now, but I have a hard time picking up books or staying dedicated to it. Any advice for that? What a great question, Caleb. And me too. And that's why what I've done is I don't do long readings. I break it up, and what I say is I'm going to dedicate, for this week I'm going to dedicate 15 minutes, or I'm going to dedicate 30 minutes. And sometimes I do immerse myself if it's just too good to put down. But I just, or I read a chapter a day. And so a little bit gets me, a little bit a day with weekends off, I find works for me. Let's see. I'm just looking at some books here as well. Let's see. David, let's see, David P. What is the name of that series, John? John Michael, The Habits of a Successful Middle School Musician. Yeah, I mentioned that with Scott Rush's books, that it was, at the time, for me, it was the most comprehensive book for our students. I would take about 25% of my rehearsal time and make sure that I covered all, I believe there's 7 units, and it really helped to develop a sense of consistency. And I've looked at his middle school books. I haven't used them, but it's the same type of layout in the string book as well. Yeah, I think I've answered all the questions, although if I skipped one along the way, do you ever have multiple books going at the same time? For example, one book about teaching psychology and one book for the fun, like a novel. I don't usually have 2 books going on at the same time. I usually just stick with one book, and I always have another one on hand. The one that I have on hand right now, actually, I'm about ready to get started. It's called The Miracle Morning, that my friend Matthew Arau, who is going to present in a few minutes, that he likes to, I'm sure he might recommend. But I always have that. And to be honest with you, right now, one of the things that I'm currently doing is a complete read of the Bible. Some would say that is perhaps the original book of inspiration. And what I want to do, in addition to kind of, these books are about our profession and about personal growth. But what I want to be able to do is start adding maybe some of the classics, a little Shakespeare, or just some of the books that we should be reading, just because of the quality of the writing. Great question. Let me see my handout. Do you have any suggestions about racism and teaching? Katie had that. Katie, gosh, what a great question. And let me tell you, I have in the last several months, like September through in last fall, I'll be honest with you, last fall, I was thinking about writing a book along those lines, and very similar to a book that like Stephen Meyer wrote, where he asked 11 great folks, and I'm still working on that. But personally, I'm trying to find how to be able to be as inclusive as possible, and that has been the biggest challenge in terms of how would I do that. And so, frankly, for those of you here that where you're passionate about that, I welcome your suggestions, because that's something that I'm still trying. I want to do it right if I'm going to contribute by way of a book. So that I didn't answer the question. I'm just sharing with you where I am right now in terms of trying to be able to contribute the best way that I'm capable of doing. Johnny, you mentioned that there's something about your handout question. Maybe take a look at the offers. It might not be in the handout. Rather, it might be in the offers. Hey, before we close, let me see. On the poll, let's see. Did we Elisa, can we look up the poll? I'm not sure that I'm able to pull that out. I know that it was being populated. Oh, end poll. I'm not sure if I did that right, but I could email that the results. Anyway, our time has come to the end. And again, thank you so much. Continue to enjoy the rest of what Conn-Selmer Institute Quebec has to offer. And here's to your success. Thank you.